All right, well, welcome everybody. Hopefully we've got everybody. I know we had a really good sized group that was planning on joining this session, so if not, hopefully they'll be joining us shortly. Today we're going to cover Newforma. Actually, I've got my slide titled incorrectly. We're not going to do project information link. You just did that on Tuesday. We're going to do actually Newforma building information management. We're going to focus on the model viewer for this session, so I apologize for that slide error there. But we've done a three-part training session, and I don't know that all of you have sat in on all of, in fact, I know a lot of you didn't sit in on our Monday session where we went over the administrative side of the model viewer, because not all of you necessarily need to know how to or will be actually pushing the models into the model viewer. But today we're going to take a look at the user perspective of that. So for those administrators that are rejoining us for this session, we'll do a little overlap just to make sure that you recall how to help the users get set up in the model viewer. And for you users that are going to just be focused on actually working in the model viewer, we'll spend the bulk of our time taking a look at how do I navigate the model viewer now that we've got these 3D models pushed from Revit up into the model viewer. We'll also take a look at how that tight integration that we've been talking about through this series of trainings will work for you too. So Revit really is the source of all that information, obviously, all of the I in building information management. But we've got the ability with these Newforma tools to be able to push some of that information both into the model viewer, as well as for those of you that sat in on Rick's Tuesday class, push information more from the 2D perspective or that informational stuff into Newforma. So there is a tight integration between all three of those things, and we'll kind of briefly see how that tight integration helps you. But today we're going to really focus primarily on looking at that model viewer itself and how you can use the functionality of being able to have this real nice lightweight model viewer available for all of your project team members to use. And where that is a real advantage to you oftentimes is I can provide this model viewer, lightweight, to really anybody on the project team. They do not have to have Revit. They don't have to have a machine that's even capable of running a Revit model. You can access this information from anywhere, so we'll make it available through your Info Exchange server. So we can be out in a project trailer doing a presentation, and we can show the model, and we could navigate through the model. And we don't have to have a lot of experience in Revit in order to do that either. And we can do a lot of presetting in there as well. So rather than me having to go out there and fumble my way through a model, we can preset views too. So if we're in a OAC meeting or we want to present something within that three-dimensional model, we don't have to go out there and start finding our way through the model live. We can actually preset all those views so that we can have a nice cohesive presentation already prepared as well. So by the time we're done today, we're going to be looking at having our model set up so it does look nice and pretty like this. It's all set for us to do any kinds of presentations we might want to do. I'm going to just jump through these bullet points fairly quickly. But we're going to take a look at how we can do all those functions within the model. So I pretty much already highlighted those. Being able to look at the bidirectional linking between Newforma Project Center and the three-dimensional model. On Tuesday, if you sat in on that class with Project Information Link, you did look at how can I make things like action items that will highlight something within the plans or within the model. We're going to look at the same thing in a three-dimensional world now with the model viewer. So we can really enhance what we're showing to our users when we're trying to describe something to them. We live in a 3D world. Let's show it to them in the 3D world so that they can really grasp and understand not just what we're trying to show them, but really the context around it as well. All of this is available, as I mentioned, to external team members as well. So we'll take a look at how do I make that information available to people who are outside of your organization too. So this is the third in that three-part training class, so giving you a lot of information around this add-on tool that you have available to you. So I will just pause there, as I usually do. I do tend to run my training sessions fairly informal. I know it's a very large group, so it might not be quite as conducive for you to just speak up and ask questions, but if you have the opportunity, if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. If you want to interrupt me, please do so. I want to make sure I get all of your questions answered and make sure that you have a good, clear understanding of how to use this tool. There is a chat window in the go to meeting or go to training session as well. So if you are at your own desktop and want to type into that chat window, any questions to me, I'll keep an eye on that too. So if you've got a moderator in your room that wants to type those questions in for you, you can do that too. All right, I'm going to switch over to my desktop and we'll take a look at where we start. So inside of Newforma Project Center, for you users, on the projects that you're working on that you want to start using the model viewer, you should see, if you still have our standard groupings inside of your projects, under Building Information Management, you should have a Model Views and a Newforma Model Viewer Activity Center. That Newforma Model Viewer shortcut that you have is going to, give me just a second, I had a slight hiccup right before the training session started. I'm going to get this other machine up real quick so I can just show you. If you click on that link, that Activity Center, it is going to give you some instructions on how to install the model viewer. All right, here we go. Let me get myself switched over to another screen here. So if we click on that Newforma model viewer and you don't have that installed on your machine already, that dialog that pops up is going to give you the instructions that you need to do that installation. So there's a shortcut right there that is going to open up the Newforma help, and it is going to walk you through all of the steps that you need to do as a user to get yourself not only install the model viewer, but get yourself all set up so that you can start actively working in those models. Now there are a couple steps that we're going to go through this morning, and if you actually follow this workflow process, it's going to get you all set. You'll have everything done that you need to do. In each one of these bubbles in that workflow is a shortcut that's going to take you down and give you those step-by-step instructions on exactly how to do the things that you need to do to get yourself prepared. Now you will see that the second one on there is the install, and there are those installers. So those MSI files for both a 32-bit and 64-bit Windows machine are right there. So you don't need to necessarily have IT come get those for you or install them for you unless your machine doesn't allow you to do installations for yourself. So you can work that out with your IT internally. So you'll want to get those installed on your machine. The first step that's identified in that help system is to create a Newforma ID. So you may have already established a Newforma ID for yourself, especially if you have worked with the mobile apps at all. If you haven't, so I'm going to share my whole desktop here. If you haven't set up a Newforma ID, that link is going to take you out to a website, to the my.newforma.com website. You're going to want to create this Newforma ID, and what it essentially is it's providing you with a single sign-on for all of the Newforma tools that are available. So essentially, it's going to give you one login that you can use for all of the apps, all of the Newforma apps if you'd like to work with those. It is also going to give you the same sign-on for your Info Exchange server. So if you're outside of the office and you want to log into your Info Exchange server, it also provides you one logon for anybody else's Info Exchange servers as well. So if you're working with any other companies that use Newforma, rather than you having to try to remember your logins for everybody else's Info Exchange server, you will have one logon for all of that. So that just gives you a little background of why we would have you create this. It is also going to give you that single sign-on for the mobile or the model viewer. It's a very simple process to set up. All you have to do is just go ahead and click the Create ID, provide your email address, your first and last name, and click Sign Up. It is going to send you an email that will have you complete the process. There will be a link in that email that's going to just take you back to this site again and have you set up the password that you want to use. So you'll notice it is an email address. So when you sign in now with this Newforma ID, rather than using your network credentials that you're probably accustomed to using for info exchange, you could now also use your email address and the password you've set up. And that password could be the same thing as your current network password if you want. You can make those in parity. That's perfectly fine. Once you log in here to this website, you are going to want to add projects. What it's really asking you to do when you add projects is to enter your company name. So if I start typing Baker Barrios, I'm going to find your company listed here. And if you click on your company, it will give you a notice that it's going to take you out to your info exchange server. So once I click that continue, it has taken me over to your info exchange server where you can go ahead and log in with your username and password, the network username and password. So what that's doing for me now is it's just linking those up for me, my Newforma ID and my info exchange login. So now in the future I'll have that connectivity. So that's the first thing you'll want to do. Make sure you get that Newforma ID set up. Any questions about that anybody has? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I'm going to presume you either understand or you're crowded in a room and can't get to a point to ask a question. Excuse me. So the next thing that we'll do, now that we've got the model viewer installed, we've got the Newforma ID set up, you do need to make sure you're on the project team. So do go ahead and add yourself to the project team. And once you're on the project team, or when you do add yourself to the project team, I'm going to double click on my user account here. Make sure that you give yourself access to the info exchange server. Sorry, my computer's running just a tad slow today. So if we go to our project roles and permissions tab, make sure you have given yourself access to the info exchange server for each project that you want to be able to use the model viewer on. Because info exchange is the tool that we're using to process all that information through. It's what's making this available out to the model viewer. It's what's making it available out to your external users as well. So any user that you want to have access to the model viewer, to those models, make sure you give them that web access to your info exchange server and provide them with a permission set that's appropriate for giving them access as well. All right, so those are the three upfront things that you want to make sure you do. The model viewer install will be a one-time thing. You won't have to do that again, so you'll have that installed. Your Newforma ID will be a one-time thing. So once you have the installation of the model viewer and your Newforma ID set up, in the future, the only thing you really have to make sure of is just make sure you're on that project team with access to info exchange. Once you have the model viewer installed, that Newforma model viewer link, or activity center as it looks like, when you click on it, it is going to open up the model viewer for you, the M6 VEO model viewer. So you don't necessarily have to go looking for that on your Windows Start button, but you can, and that's what you'll be looking for. And you can go ahead and log into the model viewer now. The username and password that you're going to provide for the model viewer will be that Newforma ID you just created. So that email, your email address, your password that you created for the Newforma ID. This account that you're creating is going to be that company name that we added when we added our Newforma ID. So if we jump back over here, I should not have closed that out. Let's go back to, oh, you know what? I'm in the wrong spot. Let me go back here. My apologies. Too many moving parts for my demo environment sometimes. So here we go. Back here, when we set up your Newforma ID, and we were looking for your company name, you're going to want to enter that account ID exactly as it appears here. Now, you don't have any funky characters or funky spacing or anything like that in your name, so it should be pretty easy to remember yours. I run into some companies where they have all kinds of different characters or it has to be spelled exactly right. So do make sure that you spell that correctly when you fill that into the account information. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. You'll notice, I'll just point it out while we're here, you can work offline. Now, the first time that you work in the model viewer, you're probably not going to want to do that. We want to make sure that we get some models connected, or will be connected to the internet, so we can download some of those models that have been uploaded into the cloud. But it is possible to work offline once you have those models loaded. There is a caching mode to the model viewer. So it does not require that you be persistently connected to the internet, which again is a real advantage to having this tool. I can go out into the field. I can be on the project site and I can have a downloaded cached copy of that model, and I can still effectively work in it, do my presentations without a connection. You will need to have a internet connection to make the linking to Newforma Project Center. So just be aware of that as you work with these models. Once we get logged into the model viewer, when we first open up the model viewer, we're going to be presented with a fairly blank slate, you might say. What we're going to want to do first is go up to the File drop-down, or the File Tool menu, and go ahead and load a project. In that window, you should see listed any projects that have been made available to you. In other words, the global admins have given you permission to the project in the model viewer. You do have the ability to manage some syncing here, and bear with me just a second. Every time I open my model viewer up, I have to do a quick connection for one of my additional models. I'm going to do something here that your admins know about. You won't necessarily have to worry about seeing this or doing anything with this. I just want to bring a second model in here. So if I go to that file and load a project, I may have more than one project available to me here. There is a manage sync capability here that will allow me to determine how I want those models to synchronize. So I can turn on or turn off synchronizing of those models. In other words, if I am headed into the field and I really need the one model because that's the project I'm working on right now, but I don't want to take the time for it to download that second model, I could turn that syncing off as I have here. So I've got a check mark for the one, unchecked the other. I'm not going to synchronize this model at all. I can also move those models around in that sync order. So I can bump that up in my sync order so that if that Fowler Square project is the one that I'm headed into the field and I turn the syncing on, I want that one to sync first. That's more critical to me than the other one. So you can move those around in their sync orders as well. Once I'm ready to go ahead and load that project, we'll go ahead and just click on it. You'll notice over on the right-hand side that it gives me a thumbnail view of which model I'm working in. Try to give me a pretty good indication if that's the project that I really want to see. It also gives me some revision notes and last revision information. The model viewer is keeping a history. It has all those iterations of the model over time. Now all the changes that can happen in the model will be dependent on when your admins, your Revit admins, BIM managers, decide to upload the model from Revit. So as the model changes in Revit, periodically, somebody may decide it would be a good time to go ahead and push up changes or update the model in the model viewer up in the cloud. So you may see those changes reflected here. You may also see any changes now that happen as a result of your users working in the model viewer. So there are a number of things, since we talked about that bidirectional capability between Newforma and the model and activity that can happen in the model viewer, you may see changes happening there as well. So this is going to list the latest things that have occurred in that model. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and we're going to open up our model view. Now for all of you, whether you're users or especially those BIM managers, the guys who are pushing these models up, this is where we really left off on Monday. This is what the state of the model was after we did our initial upload. So when we first opened that model up, this model is going to be just a pretty much white blob model or paper style model. Not a lot of detail to it, but that's our starting point. One of the first things as a user that you will probably want to do is go up to this little gear in the upper right hand corner. It might be a little tricky to see on your screen, especially if you're a ways away from it, but right below the close or the X in Windows for the model viewer, right below that there's a little gear that is your settings. You probably will want to go to the settings option in here. What you're going to see listed here is the mouse and keyboard settings. I'm going to go ahead and reset my mappings real quick to what they are out of the box default. The reason I'm suggesting you may want to go here is the default settings for the model viewer are not Revit friendly, you might say. If you are a Revit user, and honestly I can say even if you're accustomed to navigating on your computer with games or anything like that, you probably are fairly accustomed to a specific setting for your mouse and keyboard that is not set here. The ones that you'll probably want to change is down here with the rotate camera. We are pretty typically accustomed to, especially in Revit, doing a shift and middle mouse button for that function. So you may want to change that, and the way you do that is just select that shortcut and you can just type in that field shift plus MMB for middle mouse button. The other two that you likely will want to change is your select object. Typically, we usually just use our left mouse button for doing a selection. So we'll just type LMB in there. And finally, our zoom camera down here, most of the time we like just using our middle mouse wheel or that mouse wheel, so we'll type MW for mouse wheel. So those three, the rotate camera, select object, and zoom camera, you probably will want to change. It'll make navigation through your models a lot easier for you. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and now I can do my typical pan, zoom, rotate of the model that we're accustomed to. Okay, now that we've got our navigation all handled, let's take a look at our interface that we have in front of us. Down in the lower left-hand corner, we get some indications about the state of the model that we're working in. Down in the lower left, the first icon that we see is just an indicator for us of whether or not we're actually working online. Are we connected to the internet? Are we working in that current active latest model? Do we have connectivity? The next two arrows, the up-down arrows, are indicators for me of whether we have fully downloaded any changes that may have happened in the model. Now keep in mind, this is a live active model up in the cloud that is multi-user friendly. I could have numerous people in this model simultaneously. I could have people doing various activities within the model. So as I'm connected live, it will periodically let me know, do I have the latest and greatest information in my model or not? And it's going to actively pull that information down for me as I'm working in the model if I'm connected online. Same thing is true of uploading. So as I make changes, it's going to push those changes up into the cloud for me. And it'll let me know that those are fully up to date. I can also see if there are any project updates that I might want to load into my model. So as I'm working and other people may be adding things to the model, I may see that now I don't have the latest and greatest. Somebody else has done something in the model. I can choose whether or not I want to bring that information down into what I'm working on. I don't have to. It's entirely up to me whether I want that in the model I'm working on now or not. And then the rest of these icons have to do with the various tools that are available that we'll be talking about as we go through the training today as well. You will notice that along the sides of my view window, I have got a number of tools that are docked to the window. All of these toolbars can be moved around. So if I'd like to move those toolbars off to another screen. If I've got a dual screen set up, I could pull those off to another screen if I want to so that I can fully open up that view window. I can dock those anywhere I'd like. So if I want to dock them at the top, the bottom, left, right, I can dock those anywhere I want. They will actually let me stack them as well. So I tend to like, as we start looking at master presets and styling, those go hand in hand pretty well, as you'll soon see. So I'm going to just lay my styling toolbar right on top of my master presets toolbar. That way I get these two tabs. I don't have to take up a lot of additional screen real estate for multiple tools. I can just stack them and now use those tabs to move back and forth between them. Any questions about anything I've covered so far? Navigation or just the general layout of the model viewer?
Yeah, two questions.
Yeah.
Based on like all the settings that you put out so that you could navigate, that's per user. So like if I push this out to my consultant, I would have to explain to him, if he was having trouble navigating, I'd have to explain to him how to change all of those settings.
Yeah, you might want to, depending on what they're accustomed to doing to navigate through a model. But yeah, those three settings I think are pretty universal. To be honest with you, I wish we could get those changed, but so far we haven't. I don't know if it's a real typical somewhere else or what the deal is.
Sure. Okay. Second question. You set up the navigation for the mouse. Is there any way to use the viewer without a mouse? If you're out in the field and you're using your tablet, is there any way to set it up that way?
That is a good question. You know what? Let me double check on that. I think we've worked on it a little bit with, depending on how your tablet's set up, being able to use your finger to move it around. So if you're thinking of a Windows Surface tablet, I believe that it will respect finger movement, but let me double check on that for you. Give me just a second.
Okay.
No, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sorry for the pause. I just want to make sure I make a note, or I will definitely forget to get an answer for you before the end of this training is done. Okay. So now that we're navigating around, we have set up our environment the way we'd like to work in it. Let's take a look at how we actually work with the model as it exists now. One of the first things that we may want to do, if we want to start doing presentations with this model or navigate this model for whatever various reasons we decide, we may want to make this presentation ready. And right now, we can certainly move through the model. We can take a look at all of the things that exist within the model. We'll be taking a look at all of the tags and materials that are in the model here shortly. So we do have a good functional model here. We just don't bring over all of those materials that are set up in Revit. And the reason we can't do that is because of the proprietary nature of Revit. Right now, they just don't open that functionality up, so we can't bring those over as much as we'd like to. So we may want to go ahead and skin the model, which is not terribly difficult for us to do, and that's really what this styling toolbar is that I have over on the right-hand side. At least that's where I chose to put it. If you click on your View drop-down, you can see there are all of those toolbars available to you. So if styling is missing or not showing up out here for some reason, you might want to just double-check and see if it's turned on or turned off. So we can go ahead and turn our styling toolbar on, and we'll go take a look at that. Now, the styles and style sets that we see on that toolbar. Our styles are all of the materials. So there is a materials library built into the model viewer. The style sets you can think of as kind of a holding area or a scenario for the styles or the materials that we're going to apply to the building. So the first thing that we need to do if we're going to start applying materials to our building is we're going to need to create a style set. Now if we fail to do that and we come out and we select a surface of our model, so I've just done a quick selection within my model, you can see that I've got that wall panel highlighted. If I select that and I wanted to start applying materials to it, the very first thing that it's going to do, I'll just come out here quickly without explaining, and we'll assign a material. It immediately tells me you need a style set created before you can start applying materials to the model. So if we go ahead and do that up front, we can call our style set anything we want. And again, think of that as kind of a placeholder or a scenario. And when I say scenario, I essentially mean we can go through and we can apply materials that we want in this view, and then we may create another style set and decide, well, let's see what the model would look like if we did stone instead of brick on it, or something like that. We can do some modifications like that and keep those separate so that we can flip back and forth between the two. We may have some of those scenarios where we're actually showing to the owner, hey, this is what it would look like one way as we design it versus another. So I'll set up that style set, and you'll notice that in our style sets library, it will create a section based on the name of your model, and it's going to keep all those collected there for you. There are some basic ones that are built out of the box. To be honest with you, I don't think that they're particularly useful. The default one is the one that we're looking at. It is just our white model. There are some additional ones here, invisible. I can't honestly think why you would want your model invisible, but if you think of a reason, let me know. Structural is probably pretty handy. It does automatically turn on the structural model and color it for us, so that's kind of cool. Otherwise, these ones are probably not a lot of use to you. So we're going to go create our own. So we're going to start selecting things on the model. Now, as we select various areas or surfaces on the model, you'll notice down in the lower right-hand corner, it's going to give me all the information about what I've just selected. So when your BIM managers or your model managers push this information up into the cloud, they determined how much information they wanted to push with the model. Now, I suggested to them on Monday, you probably want to just go ahead and push everything. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of time. You don't have a limit, at least right now, on the amount of space available in the cloud. So you might as well push all that information up because it is providing me with all of my tags, all of my material names, all of that information is available to me, which makes it very, very easy for me if I right-click on those materials or those items in the model to do selections and show and hide various things very quickly and easily. So if I take a look at my selection tool and I scroll down through this, it gives me the ability to take a look at this by tag. So if I wanted to grab all of my exterior walls, or I wanted to refine it down a little more, maybe I just want the exterior walls that are insulated panel on metal stud, or just the second floor walls, I can pick and choose based on that tag information or that family information that I have. As I look down through the rest of these, I have a whole bunch of options for selecting, deselecting, narrowing down that selection, even modifying tag names within the model if I need to, so that I can help quickly identify those things that I want to in the model. Now at the top of my model, I'm going to zoom this down or spin it around a little bit. We can see it looks kind of funny because I've got this roof line here, but then I've got this big blockiness on top of my model. It doesn't look like it should probably be designed that way. But what I'm actually seeing in my model is those room spaces. So I've got all those room volumes that came over with the model as well. So I might want to click on that room volume, and I'm going to use my selection tool. So I right-click, use my selection, and I'm going to use my related tag to go grab all of those room volumes. I don't want my room volumes to show up as blocks in my model, so I'm going to highlight all of those room volumes that I'm seeing that are spilling out to the exterior of the building. Now I can right-click, and I'm going to just hide all of those selected things. So now, if I take a look at my model, now my roof line looks right, and the other thing I'll notice is I'm actually going to see through, or I'm going to see glass, and instead of seeing a block inside of that, through that glass, I'm actually going to see into a room now. So that may be something that you may need to do on your model. Just get rid of those volumes. Now if I want to start putting some styling to that model, I can go quickly start selecting those different materials or those panels on my building. So in this case, I'm going to select that one wall panel, use the select related tag, and I'm going to go grab all those exterior insulated panels on metal stud. Because I know that every single one of those on the exterior of the building is brick faced. So now I'll go over to my Styles tab on my styling tool, and I can go browse down through all of my materials that I have available to me. So I've got some brick materials. I've got a standard looking brick. I'll go ahead and assign that. Now all my exterior wall panels are surfaced in brick. I might want to do the same thing with the glass real quickly. So all of that, again, I'll click on that glass window, use my selection, so right click selection, select related tag, and I'm going to just select all the glass in my building, just make it quick and easy. Select all the glass in my building, go back over to my styles again, look for glass in my materials library, and I'm just going to do that dielectric base. It's a nice clear glass, and now I can see into the glass on all of my buildings. So it's the reason I said that's a nice clear glass is that particular glass material is designed such that it is I can see through it. So now I can see, don't know how visible that'll be to you on the screen that you're looking at, but now I can see into the building through that glass. So it's fairly quick and easy to go ahead and apply those materials. If I want to do that for the major things that I want to demonstrate or show in my model, it does not take me a tremendous amount of time to go ahead and do that. Any questions about applying materials to or styling my model?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible to load in, like if we do have a specific, like if the brick we wanted wasn't exactly like that, how would we load something like that in?
Yeah, good question, and I was kind of anticipating it. Appreciate you asking that. To be honest with you, unfortunately, the model viewer right now does not have an ability for us to pull in real customized styles or materials like we might in Revit, where I could go scan in a material and turn that into a style. So we do have a somewhat limited style set or materials library built into the model viewer. There is an ability for you to create some, and we'll take a look at that now. So as an example, I may have a desire to show these walls as clear because I want to present a model where we can actually see into the model. I can create a style, so it does give me the ability to create a new style. Oh, yeah, go make sure I'm on the style, and gives me my editing tool so that I can go ahead and create that style. It will build it under the category, that naming convention again. So in my styles, I'm going to see that it builds out an area for holding all the styles that I create under the model name. But these are really pretty much just solid fill colors. So if I was trying to match a paint color or something like that, I do have all of my RGB settings, so I could get that match to the paint colors or a solid carpet color or something like that. But if I'm looking for a material that's going to be like a specific brick style or brick color, that unfortunately right now it does not do. But I will give you an example of that clear wall. If I wanted to create something like that, I might decide, you know what, I don't see a style in here that allows me to do that, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create my own. And I might decide that I think the color I'd like to use for tinting my clear walls is kind of a yellow hue. So I'm going to select a yellow from in here. So you can pick whatever color you want. Down here under my alpha channel. So if you're going to write any notes, this is one you definitely might want to because it won't stand out to you necessarily. But under my fill colors, pick a color, and then under my alpha channel, if I wanted to create a new glass that is clear, or I wanted to create that clear wall material, the alpha channel setting that you'll use will be anywhere between about 60 and 80 or 60 and 90. That's going to establish the opacity of the material that I'm creating. So I'm going to just set mine about 65. The higher it is, the less opaque the material will be. But around the 60 to 90 area is going to give you an opaque material that you can still see and is still selectable. So in other words, I'm not going to select through it, but it's not going to be so colored that I can't see clearly things through it. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Create that material. I'm going to save it as, and we'll just call this our clear walls material. And it now creates that material for me right here in that style area. So now if I wanted to select my walls, and I might want to go create a new style set for that too. So I'm going to create a new style set with building with clear walls. So select all those walls again. And this time we'll go to our Styles tab and we'll apply that new material that I just created. And now we can see, if I take a look at my model, I'll zoom in here a little bit, I've now created a yellowish colored material that I can actually see into the building with. Maybe that 65 is a little light, so I might want to go darken that or make it a little less opaque. But those are the kinds of materials you can create. Solid colors or colors with some opacity to them. But as far as any real customized, I want this particular carpet pattern, that you cannot do at this point. So long answer for a fairly easy question, but it gave me an opportunity to demonstrate something I wanted to show you anyway. Any questions about that, and does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so now we've created some style sets, and that is kind of nice, because if I come to my style sets, like I mentioned, we could create those various different scenarios that I can quickly click through now. So I do have one here that I've built out. I spent a little more time coloring more of the surfaces, so it looks a little more complete. I've got my concrete, my brick, and my copper roofing and all of that completed. So it looks pretty nice. I can go flip through all of those, and I'm going to see them in various stages as I've saved any of those style sets. So there's a nice transparent wall version that I've done earlier. So that does give me an ability to create those scenarios that we can flip through quickly and easily. And you'll notice that it just kept me in that same view and just flipped me through all of those. So now I could navigate through that particular model if I wanted to. But we do have an ability to take that a step further. I overlaid my styling tool on top of a master presets tool. So this is a separate tool that we can drag out and put anywhere we want to. I do like mine on top of my styling personally, just because they do have a lot to do with each other. They're very similar in nature. A master preset you can think of as taking that style set function a step further. What I might want to do with a master preset, you might think of this is my presentation. So with a presentation view like this, I might want to spin my model around, and I might want to set it up so it's in a particular view, and maybe I'm trying to highlight something in particular within the model. I might want to have that view right there, because we're trying to take a look at something. And I'm not looking at anything in particular, so if you're trying to visualize it, my apologies, I'm not highlighting anything special, but that for some reason is a view that I want. So now in my master preset, I can go ahead and click Add, and I can name that preset anything I'd like. So maybe this is my northwest corner view of the model. Right below that, it is identifying all of the things that go into that view. So we haven't talked about some of these things yet, and we'll come back to this master preset after we have, but it does allow me to turn on or turn off or show my model visibility. In other words, I can, in this particular case, I have multiple models that were linked in with this. So I've actually got my architectural model, my structural, my MEP model. All of those models are in this view. So I have got them all turned on right now for this presentation. So I want that model visibility to stay the same. I want to be able to see all the models as they are turned on right now. I want that style set that's applied to be turned on. So we're using that style set that has clear walls. That's what I want turned on when we show this view. If I had any objects selected, and in my case, it looks like I've got all of those exterior walls selected, I want that to show that way. I can hide objects. Now, we did that earlier with those room volumes. I want it to stay that way. My camera angle. So right now, where I'm at with my camera view, that's the view I want to see when we show this. And we'll talk about sectioning in a little bit as well. So all of those things can be retained within that master preset. And we'll just go ahead and, let me back up here. We could also add some description. So if I wanted to, kind of like I might with a PowerPoint presentation, I might want my little cue card or my notes about here's what we wanted to look at in this view. This is why it's here, whatever extra description I want to provide. Go ahead and click OK. And now I'm going to see under that master presets that it's going to start creating for me all of these various different presets. So what that does for me is it does set up those views. So if I was going into a presentation meeting and I wanted to, rather than walk through the model, maybe stumble my way through and try to find things on the fly, this will make my presentation very smooth, very succinct, much easier for me to navigate, because now I can just click through those master presets and it's going to make the model look exactly the way I wanted it to. So there's an example. I've gone through, I've turned off everything but the MEP portion of the model. I've colored all of the areas of the model that I wanted to, and I got a nice quick view of that. I don't have to do all that work on the fly. I've done some sectioning here. We'll talk about that shortly. So it makes it very quick and easy for me to just go through and show that model exactly the way I want to. Any questions about master presets so far? Okay, so let's take a look at a few of the tools that I had jumped over before we created our master presets so that we can see some additional things that we could do, and then we'll take a look at making master presets really work for us and do that in conjunction with Newforma as well. I mentioned when we were doing that master preset that I can turn on and turn off models. So on my toolbar down here on the bottom right, my tags and objects, when we selected one of the objects in our model, so I selected that wall panel, we got that information down here in the lower right hand corner. That is all that tag family information that is coming in from the model. That is all visible to me through this tags and objects toolbar. So if I click on my objects tab of that tool, I can see those models, or for you BIM managers who push these models up, those model streams as it calls it when we do that upload. So there are the 3 models that we've uploaded. I can turn those on and turn them off. So if I want to get rid of my structural, my MEP, and I just want to see the architectural model, I can turn those other models off. I can also expand down through these and I can start looking at all of the tagged material information that's contained within that model, and I can individually select those. I can search for them. So if I'm looking for something specific within the model, so I'm looking for maybe one of those offices, it will quickly narrow that down for me so that I can just see those things that match my search criteria. I can also do that with all of the tag information. So everything that's tagged within my model, all the family information, all of that's going to show up here. So if I was looking for something, I'm looking for a ball valve within my model, I can go find that thing quickly and easily, and by double-clicking on it, it's going to take me right to it in the model. So I can use all that information that's come over to quickly not only find things, but as you saw earlier, select them, isolate them, do all kinds of things with that information that's contained within the model. I'm going to go back up here to one of my master presets. We'll take a look at that view again. And the other thing that I might want to do is I might want to take my model view and I might want to start slicing into it, because there may be areas of the model that I'd like to show without having to navigate into the model. I might want to just be able to cut cross sections of the model so that we can take a look at them. this sectioning tool that I have over on the left, if I go up to my view drop down, I can see there's my sectioning option. And I can turn that tool on or off, and I can put it, again, wherever I'd like to, dock it. And as I hover over each of the sections, you can see that we have all 6 sides of the model represented. So when I hover over each of those sides, you're going to see that yellow outline where the cutting blade, you might think of it as, is sitting right now. So right now, my top cutting blade is sitting well above the top of the model. But if I wanted to start slicing down into the model, I can just hover over whichever side that I'd like the cutting blade to sit on. So I'm going to start at the top, and I can just start rolling my mouse wheel. And it's going to start doing that offset in whatever I set it at right here. So I could set it in inches if I'd rather have it go in just inches. So I can bump this down and change that offset by inches rather than feet, or feet instead of inches. I can set that to whatever I want, and now I can start cutting down into my model by just rolling my mouse wheel or manually setting that offset. So if I want to cut down into that first level and I want to leave some of the joists and all that exposed, now I can see that I've got a nice cut into my model, and it gives me a nice view that I could use again to create a master preset or use to start styling my model. Any questions about sectioning so far? Okay. And I can use any side. I can combine those. So if I wanted to cut into it so that I got a specific area cut so that I just see a portion of the building that I want to, I can do that as well. So I can independently cut into it from any of my 6 sides. Now there's an option here at the top that allows me to do all of the sides all at the same time. Now where that can become extremely useful is if I want to highlight something in particular within the model. Maybe I want to go grab a room. So let's say I wanted to find a bathroom within the model. I could isolate a room. I'm going to give you an example of that ball valve that I was doing earlier. You go to my tags again. And I am looking for that 150 millimeter ball valve, so I'm going to go back to my preset that I had earlier. Don't have to. I'm just going to do that because I know that that's going to give me a good view when I go to that ball valve for presentation purposes. So I found that ball valve. So there's this 150 millimeter ball valve. And in my scenario, maybe that ball valve is no longer available for some reason. So I need to let somebody know that we need to replace that with something else or a different manufacturer. So we need to go find that. So I'm going to go find that ball valve within my model by using my search. I'll go ahead and double click on it, and it's going to take me right to that item within the model. Now from there, I might want to make a master preset. But before that, I do that, I don't want them to have to zoom into that model, because if I happen to have that model turned around in a different angle, I might wind up at a wall or something like that. It might be a little difficult, unless, of course, I make that master preset with them set where I was at. But what I can do, if I really just want to isolate that thing, is I can use my sectioning tool. And this top option, as I mentioned, is going to give me a 6-sided sectioning. It's going to cut all 6 sides of that model down to the item that I have selected. So I'm going to make sure that that's turned on. That sectioning tool can be turned on or turned off, so we'll turn it on. And I'm going to use this set box option. And what that's going to do is it's going to set all 6 sides of that sectioning tool right to the item. So it sucked those blades right up to the actual object itself. So now if I just wanted to show that object, I could. But that doesn't really help me a whole lot. It doesn't give me any context to it around it. We're in a 3D model. It'd be kind of nice to actually show, well, here's what it's connected to, here's where what it's close to. So I can use that same 6-sided sectioning, hover over it, and do what I was doing earlier. And I can start rolling my mouse wheel out. And if I zoom back out here, sorry, hopefully I'm not making you nauseous on your side. Now I can take a look at that, and I have slowly rolled out so that I'm seeing some context around that particular object that I'm trying to highlight. So it just quickly gives me that nice six-sided view so I can see that object in relation to everything around it. Now I'm going to take what I've just done. I've got I've got that style set that I was using. I've got all that turned on. I've got my camera at the angle that I want. I've got that ball valve highlighted. I've sectioned the whole model so I'm seeing exactly what I want. That's what I want to present to somebody. So now I'm going to make a master preset out of that. So I'm going to go over to my master presets. I'm going to click add. And I'm going to use my master preset tool again. I'm going to name this something, but this time I'm going to have them replace 50 millimeter, oh, I think it was 150 millimeter. So we can give it a name that makes sense to us. Again, we're going to keep all of those settings turned on. So now model visibility makes a little more sense. I want all three of those models turned on. I want them visible. I want that style set so that we're seeing a nice pretty view. I want my objects that's selected highlighted. I want my object visibility set properly. So we've hidden some things in this model. Doesn't impact this view so much, but we'll leave it turned on. I want this camera angle so that they're not turned around to the back side and can't see that ball valve. And I want all of the sectioning turned on too. So we've got all 6 sides cut for this view. So we're going to leave all those things set as they are. We could provide a little description. We could save that as just a master preset. But master presets only show up in my model view, or in the model viewer, and they show up for everybody. That'll get uploaded into the cloud and everybody will be able to see that cumulative grouping of master presets. But this is the type of thing that would be really great to be able to turn into an action item. Or maybe we're going to generate an RFI off of it, or something that we would typically want to log inside of Newforma. So this tool gives me the ability to not only create the master preset, but to link it to something inside of Newforma. So we've got the option to save and link. So I'm going to use that tool, that functionality. And that is going to open up Newforma for me, and it's going to give me the name of whatever it is that I'm creating. Now what it's going to do by default for me is it's going to create a model view. So we have this model views activity center that we haven't really looked at yet inside of Newforma. And I'm going to turn off this check mark for right now. A model view is exactly what it sounds like. It is a link to a master preset basically inside of the model viewer. So if I just wanted to create that master preset and I wanted to register that in my model views log inside of Newforma, I can do that. It's going to take that name that I gave it, and I'm going to just add a little text on the end of this so we can find it a little more easily for right now for our training purposes. Down at the bottom it gives me the option of copying that view as a snapshot as well to my clipboard. I'll show you why that might be valuable to me. So let's go ahead and create that model view. And mine's going to take a little more time than yours. I'm actually working on a server that's way on the other side of the country, so mine slows down a little bit. Yours probably will not. The next thing it's going to ask me to do in the model viewer is go ahead and save those changes so that we can have those saved for the future. Obviously, we'd probably want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that change. So now we've saved that master preset. And if we go back to Newforma Project Center, we take a look at our Model Views Activity Center. We take a look at that master preset we just created. I might do that by today's date. There's that new model view that I've stored and logged inside of Newforma. And that snapshot that it created for me, it has put in my preview window. So I get my nice snapshot view. I can see what it is that I'm going to get when I take a look at that model. And over on the right, or sorry, the left-hand side, I'm going to see the options of going ahead and opening that model view up in the model viewer. And you'll notice it gives me two options here. I can take a look at that as it existed at the point in time that it was created, the originating model, or I can take a look at it as it exists in the model today. Because remember, I mentioned earlier that this model viewer is taking snapshots, or it's keeping point in time views of the model. So when I click that save, I created a point in time snapshot of the model as it existed right now. But I may have other users making changes, or the BIM manager, model manager may upload a new version of the model. And so things may change. Maybe that ball valve has been replaced now. I'm going to be able to look at that model as it existed in that point in time. So that's just a model view. I can store just that master preset inside of Newforma. But I mentioned it might be really useful to actually turn this into something actionable. So when I do that add under my master preset, I'm going to do that same thing again. Do the same settings this time, but now I'm going to save and link. But this time when I do my save and my link, rather than just creating a model view, I'm going to also turn on this option to relate it to something else. Now, in my lower window here, the project item types I'm going to see listed will be any activity centers that are turned on and available for my project. So in this particular project that I'm working in right now, these are the activity centers that I'm going to be able to load. So I could create an action item. I could create a punch list out of this. I could create a field note. If I had contract management items or construction administration items turned on for this project, I could create RFIs, submittals, change orders. I can create any of that stuff here as well. I just don't have those turned on for this project. So I'm going to turn this into an action item. I need somebody to do that, to go actively make that change. Do the research, make the change. So I'll click OK. And that is going to go in now and create a model view for me. So it is still creating a model view. But it is also going to make an action item for me. So give this just a second. And there's my action item. It's named it based on that master preset. So I'm going to add a little text to mine so we'll find it real easily. I could go ahead and set due dates to it. I could assign it to somebody. I could do all the things that I normally do with an action item. And down at the bottom, we can see that it is related to that particular model view. Now, here's where we start getting some real tight integration to the project information link as well. If we had done the project information link, exchange of elements, rooms, all of that information, we may also see listed under here that element. Or if we selected a room, we may see that room listed here. Because both of those tools, the model viewer and project information link, all recognize the same items, the same elements, the same rooms. All that information is linked, whether I did it with a three-dimensional model or project information link. So I could have this related to all of that information. Where that can be very handy then is I can now be working in the spatial index. I could be working in the elements, model elements activity center, making those changes or seeing those quickly right here that they're all tightly connected to each other. So I'll go ahead and create that action item. It's going to have me save again. And now back in Newforma Project Center, if I go to my Action Items Activity Center, and we go find that item that I just created, that action item. There's my action item. And again, over on the left-hand side, you're going to see the ability to go take a look at that in the latest model, the originating model, or there's that snapshot view that I created as well. So I could just view the snapshot. So I can go take a look at that in either model. And when I do that, let me come back out here. I'm going to just switch this over to one of my other presets. If I wanted to go take a look at that, I'll go look at it in the latest model. It is going to open up my model viewer if it isn't already. And it's going to, here in just a second, load my model. And mine's going to break on me. So my apologies. Normally that would have gone in and loaded that nice preset for me. I'm getting a little bit of a disconnect sometimes with mine because I'm actually connecting mine in kind of a weird way, but yours will normally work. Sorry that didn't work. Let me do this though. I'm going to go show you another thing that does for me. I'm going to go back to my action items. I've got another action item in here, and I know this isn't going to work exactly right either. I did see this was broken a little while ago, but in this particular action item, I've highlighted to somebody that, hey, this overhang is not big enough for an ambulance to pull under it. So it really should be an ambulance bay, essentially. So I needed somebody to fix that. We made a master preset. We turned it into an action item. I want to go take a look at that, and I want to see that in the originating model because I want to see what that looked like back when it was a problem. When I do that, when I go take a look at something that is a point in time, historical snapshot, when it opens up the model for me, now mine's fixed for some reason in my historical view, so I apologize for that little disparity, but what I really wanted to point out to you is this red banner around the outside. Anytime I see that red banner for me, it's just letting me know you are looking at a historical view. This is not the current model view. So it does highlight it real visibly for me so that I can see. I'm not looking at the latest and greatest. You are in a historical view. But the point is, I can go back and forth. I can look at the latest model. I can look at the historical model, all using those master presets and that connectivity to Newforma. All right, so I've kind of droned on for a bit there without giving you a chance to ask any questions or express any comments that you have. Any questions about any of that functionality that I just showed you? Okay, sounds like everybody's still with me. So now that we've done all that work, we've got people working in the model, the one last thing we want to take a look at is how does this all function for somebody who is outside of the company? What capability do they have and how do they get access to it? Well, all this information that we create and we link inside of Newforma is available or can be available out on InfoExchange for users who are logged into your InfoExchange server, for internal or external users. So if I am out in the field and I don't have Newforma Project Center connected or open, but I want to go take a look at some of those model views, I could just load my model viewer up. Same thing is true for those external users. I can also go find any of those action items, those model views, through InfoExchange. So I'm logged into my project. I'm logged in my case, as an internal user. But I can go out here and I can click on my view drop-down, and I'm going to see model views and the Newforma model viewer. And if I click on that Newforma model viewer, that is the link to my installer information too. So if I'm a user, internal or external, who decides, hey, it'd be kind of cool to go take a look at this model stuff, and I don't have the model viewer installed, all I have to do is go to that view drop-down, go to that activity center, and it's going to give them the information to install the model viewer. So it's going to pop up a dialog and first tell them, well, in order to work with this, you do need the model viewer. If it's installed and we click continue, it will open the model viewer for me. If I don't, then this help information or this help button, and that's all in the text if you're reading behind me. If I click help, it's going to take me to that same help window that I showed you at the beginning of our class. It's going to walk them through all the same things that they need to do. Create the Newforma ID, install the model viewer, log in, and then if they don't already, if your admins haven't already given them permission to the model, they may need to ask for that, but hopefully you've done that. So it walks them through all the steps they need to do to get the model viewer installed. And now if I click on my view drop down and I want to look at a model view, there's the list of all those model views that we saw in that activity center in Newforma Project Center. So we could click on any one of those master presets if we have been given access to them. And I can see that snapshot, and I can see up in the upper right hand corner the option to go ahead and view that in the latest model view or in the originating model view. The same thing is true for things like action items. If I've assigned an action item to somebody, and I could do this with somebody who is perhaps one of my consultants. Maybe I've assigned a change to my MEP guys or my structural guys. They can come in here and they can take a look. There's that replace ball valve. There in my related items column, there's an indicator that we have this connected to a model view. If I go click on that action item, I'm going to see all the information around the action item, my due date, any supporting documentation that I need, but also again up in the upper right hand corner there's the option for me to go ahead and view that in the latest model or the originating model view. So all that functionality extends out through Info Exchange. Any questions about any of that capability? Okay. So that pretty much covers the major functions of the model viewer. Overall, it's a very, very simple tool to use. Very navigable by really anybody, especially if you make those few mouse keyboard settings changes that I suggested you do. It makes it so easy for anybody to be able to get in there, whether they've got any Revit knowledge whatsoever at all. It does make it very easy for them to start showing things in a three-dimensional world, which can be very nice for both those presentations as well as really calling things out for people in a way that is much more, we can grasp much easier in a three-dimensional world than maybe we could when we were just dealing with 2D paper drawings. So any questions you have about anything at all that I've shown you today, or anything that maybe I didn't show you that you think should be in here or you need to see?
What about the rest of those little pictures on the bottom left?
Yeah, good question. Most of these have to do with these toolbars. So there is a first-person mode. I can turn that on or turn it off. All it really does is it just changes my navigation capability a little bit. So now when I move, I can move, and I am a terrible driver, I will admit, and I'm not going to make you succumb to my driving in this view because it might make you sick. But basically, it allows me to do this like I kind of would. If you're familiar with gaming, being able to walk through a model, I can walk through it. So it just toggles that, and it changes my mouse functionality so it'll let me drive through or walk through a model. That is just toggling my isolate, my cutting blades over here. Changing my camera settings. So if you're really into and you really know a lot about how camera functionality works, you can change what lens essentially you'd have on a camera. So I can change that camera perspective. There is a measurement tool in here. I don't tend to show it most of the time, although I'm happy to do so. It's not, I shouldn't be negative. I'm not going to be negative. Basically, it doesn't always do what everybody would like it to do. It's going to give me a one-time quick measurement. So if I did want to measure something, so let me zoom in here. If I wanted to measure, get my model moved up here a little bit. If I wanted to measure the height of that post right there, I can measure it, and it's going to give me a flyout that will show me what that is. The only reason I said it doesn't do what some people would like it to do, I can't have that tag stay persistent. It is a one-time measurement tool. So if I wanted to know now what the length from here to here is, it'll show me that. I can get areas, but it doesn't keep them persistent. But it does give you a measurement tool. So it's just a simple click on one endpoint, then click on the other, and it will tell me what that measurement is. So that's pretty much the extent of those additional tools down there. It's basically the same thing as what you're going to see up here under your view dropdown. All right, hope that answered your question. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
So if you have materials applied to elements in your model, would that carry over? And is that why we would apply materials to it through the viewer?
When you say carry over, do you mean back into Revit or just carry over for any users in the viewer?
For users in the viewer to see.
Yes, yeah, good. Thanks for the clarification. I figured that's what you meant. Yeah, it does carry over for all users in the model. Now, the admins, the global admins, do have the ability to set the permissions that users have when they are accessing the model. So they can give them a read access only, which means for those users who have read only, they're not going to be able to do all of that application of styles to the model. They're going to have it as a viewer only, but they still can slice and dice the model. They can navigate around the model. They can do all those things. They can look at existing master presets, but they won't be able to create their own, which is probably typically the permission you give to external users. For internal, with the read-write, I can do all those things. I can apply styles. I can create style sets. I can create new styles, and those do carry over for all users who are viewing the model. But I am going to answer that other question that you didn't ask, just to make sure that there's clarification there too. Anything that I do in the model does not go back into Revit. So even for my read-write users, they are not working as if they were in Revit. We presume your Revit users want to retain that control and they want to work in Revit if they want to really modify the model. This is a means for users to have access to that three-dimensional model, do things to it, but not harm what's in Revit. And if we do want to communicate changes and things like that, then the best way to do that would be those master presets associated to something in Newforma, action item, RFIs, whatever that might be. All right, any other questions? Okay, well, if you think of any after the fact, don't hesitate to ask them. Our community is a great place to go for getting access to that information. You can find the community by going through our help system as well. It will highlight the community for you. I'm sure Rick is your training manager. Probably I'm going to throw him under the bus here. I know he's sitting and listening in, but he'd probably be happy to answer a lot of those questions. He can certainly get a hold of me, and I can get those answers to you as well. And I do have that one outstanding one about working on tablet and navigation, so I'll make sure we get that to you as well. So unless there are any other questions, thank you so much for attending today. We do have this recording available to you, and we'll get it sent over to you sometime today. Thanks a lot, everyone.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.